Welcome to another webinar with Men's Depression and Suicide Network. A little bit of a background. Our presenter today, or the guy who's chatting with us today, Trevor Mills, he sent me this this link, and I remember it vividly. I think I was in the middle of a football game, and I got this link, and it was to a video, and it was titled "Evidence of a Struggle." And I watched it, and then I watched it again, and then I showed it to my wife because I was just like so enamored with it. I thought it was so good. And so then Trevor and I met, had a really nice chat, and got a terrific story, got half a dozen terrific stories, and just thought that it would be terrific to bring him in today to have a bit of a chat with us about some of those things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks very much, John, for having me. When that happened, when John and I first made contact, I was in the midst, or I just started my Kickstarter campaign. And what inspired that, to just bring everyone up to speed, is my brother took his own life about 18 months ago after a 7-year battle with mental illness. As anyone can imagine, it was a devastating crisis and tragedy that we encountered as a family and as a community. It was a huge loss. But as a family, we had a decision, to make this negative situation into a positive one, and so my natural passion is hip hop music and education. So I decided to do a memorial album to my brother and to those who are suffering with depression. And we decided we needed some money to do that, and we decided we're looking around at different ways to raise funds. And prior to that, we just given our funds to the Siegel Center at BGH, which is a great cause, but we decided to go with Kickstarter to raise that. And so I was just cold calling different mental health agencies. And when I saw Man Up Against Suicide, I thought this couldn't be a better fit. And so, yeah, that was what was happening on my end of things. And then to know that it resonated with you was all the more heartwarming for that. So, yeah. Now, what I've been doing with the Evidence of a Struggle campaign, and if I could speak to the name and how I came on that, was I was thinking about that on the way over here today, and the title, as soon as it popped into my mind, Evidence of a Struggle, it seems so fitting, because when someone takes their own life, we say, so and so, they took their own life, they committed suicide. That it was an active, clear choice that they did, and that's all there was to it. And when Robin Williams passed, I remember there was a brilliant article saying that Robin Williams didn't necessarily take his own life; he died from depression. And I was thinking with my own story, with my brother, that was clear, because he was sick, he was suffering, and he was so deep in the psychosis. There wasn't really that cognizance and that insight we talk about with mental health, and there was evidence of a struggle. If there's a homicide, they talk about the struggle, about the evidence, that they find at the scene. And for someone to say, "No, there's no struggle there," didn't seem appropriate for me. And I feel that the title of this album isn't just about my brother, isn't just about the people that have passed before us. It's about so many brothers, so many sisters, so many sons, daughters, mothers, fathers. The list goes on. And that's where it comes from. And I have to say that when I was doing this, I was scared. You'll see the clip shortly about the Kickstarter. I was terrified to put this out there. I was absolutely terrified to share my story. And why is that? And that's the fear of judgment that we have, that I'm going to somehow seem weaker or less powerful, or all the things we associate with masculinity and what this society props us up to be, and what they honor are all those things that aren't genuinely authentic. And so I was terrified to put this video out there and to go to my community with this, right? Because that's what needed to happen. And it was a huge step. And I know that you don't get anywhere if you're scared all the time, and if you're scared of judgment. So when we hit send to launch this Kickstarter campaign, it was 60 days. And if you don't get the money, if you don't reach your goal, you don't get it done. It's all for nothing. All the Facebook posts, all the emails, all the cold calling, all that is for nothing. So it's really a plunge, and it started picking up momentum right away. And I think it's because, as you can see and you can feel in the words, it's completely authentic. It's completely our story, and it's about someone who was a really big deal, who is a really big deal, and it's about all those big deals out there who don't recognize who they are at that time, in the midst of psychosis, in the midst of depression. So, so that's the sort of the genesis of the campaign, and how it came to be there. So we could segue into the clip now, and I'd love to share that with those who are with us today. That this was filmed in an alley off of Main Street, and we were interrupted by cars a few times, but we got the take that we wanted. So I'd love to share that with you.
When you spend it on mental health, you're investing in mental wealth. The system, it seems, is everyone for themselves. I can say that for certain because I've been there myself. Dodged a couple bullets just to get here myself. But looking out now puts a smile on my face, because for the past couple years I was screaming in space. The louder I yelled, the more that it swelled, and all I was hoping for was someone would help. Identify the symptoms, start treating the source. Now I got our memories in a cremated corpse. Is that something you feel? Should I apologize when I rap that real? Cause I held that steel, pulled myself back before my fate got sealed. Don't feel whole, just one in my soul. Cause losing him was like losing my limbs. Set up right now was a setup to win. My heart was shattered and every memory gathered was scattered across the sky like stars in dark matter. Applause, after applause. That was the outcome, what was the cause? Threats, debts, a genetic predisposition, a fascination with death? Well, if we know that, what's the next logical step? The paradox is how you treat the untreatable. How is that feasible? I suppose it's not reasonable if I rhyme to your reasons, but your reasons don't rhyme right. Because for the past 12 months, my family's been living in hindsight, reading under a blind light, watch the slow motion car crash because Doc's waiting for when the time's right. That don't work for me. That only caused hurt for me. I know he wasn't easy, but my brother was worth the work for me. And your family is worth the work for me. So roll up your sleeves and get down with the dirt for me, because nothing but action is going to dilute the hurt for me.
It's an incredibly powerful piece, isn't it? When I met with you and we talked, you shared this great story about a guy.
Oh yeah. The first backer, yeah, the very first backer. And in this story, I have to acknowledge Evan Parsons and Aaron Salazar. Aaron Salazar was my brother's best friend growing up, who helped with the video. Evan was the man behind the camera. And they're just both beautiful human beings. So thank you so much to both of you for making that happen. Evan and I were in the alley on Main Street. And I'm big on omens and signs that the universe sends you if you're on the right track or the wrong track. And so we're doing, as I was saying earlier, we're doing take after take of that, of the piece you just saw, because there was natural obstacles of cars coming and going, and we really needed to commit to every single take. I had to commit to it and put it out there. And I noticed a fellow who was watching. He was under an alcove, and he was sort of frantically on his cell phone, and he looked like he'd been through the ringer, but he was watching every take of ours, and we were there for over an hour doing that, and he was still there. I don't know if he was waiting for someone. I don't know if I should be flattered, or maybe he just, that was his spot and we were in his area. Whatever the case, we finally hit the marker, and we got the take that we wanted. And he approached me afterwards, and it was very touching for me. And he says, "Did you write that?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And he goes, "Can I ask what it's about?" And I said, "It's for my big brother. He took his life." I sometimes say he died from mental health or mental illness. and we're trying to raise money to do a hip hop album in his honor. And he goes, "So you want to raise money?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's the idea. We want to raise $10,000." He goes, well, let me be the first to donate. And he took out a loonie and passed it to me. And he's just like, "Thanks, man." And he just sort of walked off and did his thing. And Evan and I were just breathless afterwards. And we just looked at each other like, how significant that loonie was to him. From anyone, the fact that they see this as a worthy cause and that touched them was so special. And I said to Evan right away, I go, "This campaign's going to be successful, man. This campaign is going to be successful because this is a huge omen to have this fellow do that." And so when we reached their goal, I put a Facebook post to thank him because he's the first official backer. So again, thank you wherever you are. That gave me the confidence that know that I was on the right track. Yeah. That was the first person to see the piece, right? So he was, and he saw it more than a few times. So I guess he had a chance to mull it over. So that was a really special moment for me, and it always will be. And I told my mom, and she cried when she had that. So that was, that was really special about that. And so it just, from there. The inbox, the emails and text messages, the outpour of people's own stories started coming in. I'm sure, as you're all too familiar with, and you get a certain strength from sharing your story. So if I can be of any help to anyone who's gone through or going through a similar struggle, please, hit me up. And hearing those stories that people lost family members or going through depression or trying to get a family member help, and those things are really, really inspiring. So that helped a lot. But leading up to that, like I was saying, prior to that, as with when we raised the $25,000, that was with one of my best friends, Bodie Jones, who really helped me. And he's a well-known musician around Vancouver, and he was in the Peak Performance Project at the time with the Peak radio station, and he did a fabulous job sharing the stage with me, and we just worked as a team, raising money and bringing that in. So so that was a really cathartic process, I think, being able to contribute to that. And one of the things when we saw what VGH is doing, I can speak to why I was so motivated to help them was looking at a pillared approach to mental health and really overall wellness, and looking at what creates these situations. And that's one of the things in the Kickstarter is, threats, debts, a genetic predisposition, a fascination with death. Well, if we know that, what's the next logical step? And that's sort of where we were as a family, is we knew he was sick. We knew he was a threat to himself, and we were unable to fully get him the help that he needed. And I think everything plays a factor. I think nutrition plays a factor. I think counseling can play a factor. I think community support, and the biggest thing is a sense of purpose. If we can give these people who are suffering from depression, intense clinical depression, a sense of purpose. And that's one of the things I'm so pleased to see at the Siegel Center, is having the family rooms, having gardening, having a vocational aspect to it, the social work, to help these people who are suffering find themselves again and find what they're good at. And that's what we really want to see more of. And it's happening. And there's so many awesome people in the city that are doing such progressive things with mental health that I'm just so pleased. And I can't take any credit for the money that we raised, because as we know, it's from the generosity of the donors and backers. So to every single one who's donated and continues to donate, not just to this Kickstarter or any of the fundraising I've done, just to the city, to give back to these initiatives. So it's a humbling thing to be a part of.
Just with the 25 for VGH.
Yeah.
So did you raise that in a music event, or that was literally? Can you say a bit about
exactly, for sure. We what happened was Bodie wanted to put together a a charity event, and we're roommates. This is Bodie Jones, a good friend of mine. We lived together. We went to school since elementary. We've you know, we both got into music together, and Spencer, like my brother, was huge to both of us. He was a big brother to both of us. So it was clear that whatever we were going to do was going to be together with Bodie and I. So we started off our first show at the fan club, and we had a fundraiser, and that was in September 25th of 2013, and it went very well. There was a great turnout. People were extremely generous, and we had the foundation there taking donations. So I think we actually decided to auction Bodie off as a date. So and then we were going to slowly auction off more of our friends, but we kind of reached our marker for the night and got a little shy as the evening went on. Perhaps we could have 30,000. I don't know. So so that was fun. Bodie played a set. We had Tanya and Ganaba there, SOS, ST Elements, and Abyss, and then I came on at the end of the evening and did my piece. And actually, that's where I first delivered this spoken word. I wrote it for this event, so that was the first time I delivered it. And there was actually a second verse to it that I just dropped when I was on stage, so it'll never be heard. I don't know, but I think it was, you know, as long as it needed to be. So that night was extremely successful. It was 5,000, raised 5,000 that night. We did another one at Mouth vs. Mike at Calabash, which is extremely supportive restaurant. Big shout to Roger at Calabash. He's been very supportive for community and fundraising events. We did another successful one there. Finally, Andrew Jappy, a wonderful, beautiful human being, hosted a house concert at his home, and that just went off the chain. I think 11,000 came in that evening, and then we pushed to, again, Bodie featured that night. He did his set that night. The foundation came out. I just delivered the spoken word, and Andrew was a guy who really influenced the style on how I perform it, because at first I would slam it really hard, and it was really intense. And I was at this West Van house party, and I was wondering if that would be appropriate, you know, if that might be a bit much. And so I developed more of a conversational style with the delivery, and it's actually influenced my style of performing quite a bit. And so I'm really thankful to him, not just for facilitating that event, but also influencing my style as well. And so that was great. So another house concert, and then we did internet fundraising from there. We had a goal, and that was through Twitter, Facebook, the social media kind of fundraising. Yeah. And then, yeah, we set, I don't know how we arrived at 25, and I think it was probably like 26 and change is what we finished with, but that was the goal. And again, extremely generous, and thank you to everyone who did, who donated and who shared and liked and just sent us positive energy and gave us a place to perform. You know, so these venues in Vancouver were really fantastic for that. So yeah, that was that first campaign that we did.
The really, you know, again, when we talk, you know, you talked a little bit about your brother and help seeking and stuff, and it's always interesting because we often talk about men not necessarily getting the help or soliciting help.
For sure.
But yours is a bit of a different take on it in some ways, isn't it? Because it was way more complex than just not going to get help.
Yeah.
Say a little bit about.
Yeah. Well, with my brother, he was a very loving, caring, great human being. But in terms of getting help, he didn't want to go in for help. And he had moments, and I think a lot of people who have been close with people who are suffering from mental illness, there's moments of lucidity where they can come across as quite together, right? And it is difficult for the health professionals to get help. So we had, you know, my mother was an extremely savvy advocate for him, trying to get him to be certified. We had a moment where we did have him in, and it seemed to be going very well, but was released. And it was unexpected. We weren't notified on the release, and I think one of the problems is at a policy level with when someone's over the age of 18 and they're a legal adult. There's a confidentiality that comes in, and again, it's not a time to point fingers at professionals, because everyone does the best they can with what they have, and that's just the reality. But there's policy in place that presents some difficult and add a level of complexity to the treatment. And so unfortunately, we saw that as a big opportunity, because we finally got my brother in, who could be so stubborn at times, and we saw a benefit. We saw him turning a corner, and unfortunately the discharge happened, and that was quite shocking to us, because we saw him getting better, but not exactly where we wanted to. We didn't feel that he would be able to take care of himself. So there was some follow-up, but again, with people who I think are suffering from acute psychosis, I think that the outreach needs to be stronger. I think, and I can't pretend to have all the answers, but I think that was something that, because they're not, like you said, they're not going to ask for it themselves, so that's why I'm so pleased to see that the Siegel Center is having family rooms. And I feel like something like that, where families are able to, some people coming from out of town, I couldn't imagine what they're going through to try and find that. We lived in the city, so yeah. So that was some of our experience with trying to get him the help that he needed for that.
We've spoken, as you know, we've spoken to lots and lots of people who've lost someone to suicide, and it's part of that Man Up project. And not everybody is able to find a way to channel their energy positively. Some, you easily get caught in feelings and grief and things like that. You've done a pretty amazing job of directing your energy, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah. I wonder, can you say a little bit?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that, because it's when I lost my brother, and as people, so many you out there have probably experienced something, a loss to some degree. It was shocking. The stages of grief are, I found them to be very real, and the first one was for sure shock, which I don't know if they always list that one, but the funny thing with shock that was explained to me is you don't know you're in shock, right? And so I don't think it fully sunk in for about a week or so. I'd say that there was almost a semi-euphoric state that was going on, like of adrenaline, that I think I was feeling when we had to get the celebration of life organized, console each other as best we can, mixed with the spikes of highs and lows as well. But being a rapper, I wanted to write. I thought that's what I do when I'm feeling something strong, and I couldn't for a while, and it was very frustrating for me that the words weren't coming out. And I'd sit down with a pen, but I knew what my brother would want for me is to be stronger, and to have him with me, and to be better, be the best I can be. And my good friend Terry Perdido introduced me, and he's been working as a manager for me with photos, and an awesome friend and manager, and introduced me to Savage Beats downtown. He has a place called Beats and Bikes, and I love my bicycle. My bicycle has been something that's helped me through a lot of times, and I was like, Beats and Bikes, that's perfect. So he sells rap beats and fixes bikes. I'm like, that's what I need. And I got my first, gave me a few beats to start writing with, and gave me this one called Hood Boys, and I just started going. And you'll hear this on the album Evidence of the Struggle, because he created all the beats for it. And I just started writing, and it was just so cathartic. And the first lyric I wrote down was, I'm moving on now, but I'm bringing them with me, because a brother gives you strength and the grief keeps you busy. I'm taking on the challenge, be the best I can be, and look after the fam while you're resting in peace. And moving on, but bringing him with me, was a way of honoring your deceased loved one, but still moving on, and still. So he's with me, and I know that, and his legacy lives on. But I don't need to be sitting down, eating Haagen-Dazs every day, crying with a box of tissues. You know, like he wants to see me getting out, going for runs, being healthy, being, you know, pursuing a career, and contributing to others' happiness. You know, I think really is what he's about. So that was my experience, and I think there's incredible power that comes from tragedy. The inspiration that can come from that is incredible when you harness it and take care of yourself. So that was a bit of my process, and it's ongoing. You know, there's still a lot of you know, sad moments, but the good outweigh the bad. I'm trying to keep it like, you know, and it's so nice to have my music there, and I think it's important to share that vulnerability with people, you know, and that's, I think the more we share about ourselves, and the more we know about others, the kinder we are. And I think that's really what I'm just hoping to affect, is kindness in our society, and tolerance.
There's often a lot of stigma around suicide. You know, it's kind of interesting. You've obviously had really good people around you, but you've also facilitated the conversation, I guess.
I've been fortunate enough to have a platform where I can do that. My work as a high school teacher, I have such incredible students, being a part of Kids High, where I've had students that I bring the hip hop into the classroom as well, and I have such a talented group of writers in my classes, and outside of them as well, that have just shared their writing, shared the dialogue with the class, and I hope that it seems a way that they feel like it's a comfortable place to have that conversation, and it's nothing to be ashamed about, and it's something that affects every family, really, if we're looking at it realistically, that everyone knows someone who suffered at one point or one time or another from mental health. So recently we had CTV come in on Bell Let's Talk Day, and that was just a fantastic experience. Peter Granger came in from CTV with the camera, and was able to film one of my classes where we were, my students had written spoken words, raps, short stories, and around mental health and wellness, and it was really neat. It was a really cool experience, and I think the kids were happy about it. There was a couple of them featured on the segment. You know, as you can see, perhaps we could maybe put up a link or something for people out there. But it was really great, and I think it was an empowering moment for when you take control of your story. You know, there's a certain feeling of empowerment, I think, that comes with that I'm seeing in the young people that I work with.
Yeah. What can we learn from your students, do you think?
One of the things that I found really interesting when we were talking about it is the stereotypes. You know, that mentally ill people are homeless or weak or needy, and it was so interesting for them to pull out these stereotypes that we see from movies and from you know, online and everywhere else, you know, in music as well, you know, the word psycho and crazy, and so they're on it, you know, they're so tuned in to what's going on. So that was something that I learned from my students when they were identifying the inconsistencies of the stereotypes, not only recognizing them, but seeing that, no, that's not my friend, you know, that's not my experience, that's totally inaccurate. So the sort of hyperbolic language that's used in the media about that. So that was something that I realized from them, and just as well, like the compassion that they show each other. I think I asked a question, what would you do if a friend of yours was suffering from depression? They're like, you know, come over with some video games or come over with something they like, and just those gestures of kindness are so heartwarming. You know, I think I think teenagers often don't get enough credit
Yeah.
for how great they really are and what they contribute. So I was thinking, I should do that. There's some people that I should give that extra phone call to follow up on. I'm like, am I doing everything I can do, for the people in my life, to let them know that they're cared for? So it keeps you sharp, working with young people for sure.
Yeah. The album, I don't know if anyone calls them albums anymore.
Yeah.
I do. So can you say a little bit about, putting that together? And in terms of, like, is it a story that is a chronological story? Does it work its way through, or is it, is it themed in terms of very much the evidence of the struggle throughout? I'm just wondering about it.
No, that's a good question, because this is actually my first concept album that I've done. The first one I dropped in 2008, so it's been 7 years since my last formal release. So I've done some features, but this is an uneducated. The first one was just sort of songs that I put together, and this one is a concept album, because initially I was thinking, I'm just going to do one song. I'm going to do the traditional one song to honor my loved one who's deceased, and it just didn't feel right. I'm like, I gotta write an album. This seems appropriate. And what it started, and it's interesting how it works, but it started taking the shape of the stages of grieving. I started seeing the denial, the anger, bargaining, and I started seeing these themes coming out to me. Like, overall, it was inspired by a death from mental illness, but it started taking on something bigger. And I was listening to the album, about 4 weeks ago, and I was like, man, it's a bit bleak at times. Like, there is the feeling of hope. And I was like, we got to do one more song, man. Right? We got to, at the same time, feeling this pressure to finish it. I'm like, no, we got to do one more song. And a good friend of mine, Devin Alexander, sent me a song, and the beat, and the instrumental is called Last Song. And it's this joyful, just a happy, light, beautiful beat. And I was like, yeah, I got to write on this, and this is going to be acceptance. This is going to be where we go from here, because I want to give the listener, I want to end on a really high note, because it is a celebration. It is a celebration that, every day is a celebration. So I think that the concept, the theme is the stages of grieving, in a sense, themes of brotherly love or universal love, and that fact, the theme of change in life, that you can't, that's the one thing you can count on, is things changing and how we adjust. So I think that transition theme of that is in there as well. And Jason DeCudo, he's a brilliant jazz pianist and turntablist, and also teacher and father, does the intro on the album. And what he's done there, we have an excerpt of Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting.
Wow.
And that was actually selected before Mr. Williams passed, and it's extremely fitting. So I'm really excited for people to hear that.
Yeah. How far off is the album?
I would say we're hoping for a May release date for the album, and have the release party. And we're looking right now at the Rio Theater. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but we'd like it to be an all ages event, and as well feature some of the young people from my school that have been performing around the city. So
that's great. So when we know the details, we can tell.
Thank you.
Push that out, because it sounds really good. Family.
Mm-hmm.
How is everything at home?
They're great. I got 2 sisters, and they're out in Toronto, Jessica and Laura. So hello, and they're doing amazing things. It's been difficult having them away, during this process, but I think we're a very supportive group. Our older sister has sort of always been because it goes Jessica is oldest, and then Spence is 2 years older, and then me. I'm the neglected, starved for attention middle child who's always out there, and then our youngest Laura, and they're just fantastic people that we're very supportive of this campaign, as as I hope to be. My older sister Jess just completed her master's in business, and that's so very proud of her. And Laura is doing her master's right now out there in Toronto, and they're both just great people. So they're doers as well. I think that they've completed a lot since we lost our brother. And my mother as well has been helping me with avenues of mental health agencies in the city, and seeing ways we can help others with this. My father has been tremendously supportive. He's always been involved in sports administration, and has just been such a rock for me. And as well, my tremendous, amazing community of friends. I've been there because the thing is, I get so caught up in my interpretation of the story that the temptation is to neglect what other people are going through. And I always want to make sure that what I'm speaking on is also honoring my family's feelings of the event as well, because it's not just me who's feeling it. I don't know what it could possibly be like to lose a child to that, and that's something I want to respect as much as possible with my parents and with other parents who've lost their children. That I think it's a different kind of pain than when I had a student actually share something really insightful with me, and they said, Mr. Mills, when you lose your parent, you lose your past. When you lose a child, you lose your future. When you lose a sibling, you lose your past, present, and future. And I thought it was so profound. And that was one of my students, Nick, who graduated last year, who's such a wonderful person. So shout out to him. And I just was constantly humbled by the wisdom that comes from my students.
There's a lot to chip away at things like the stigma, doesn't it? When people reach out. Yeah,
it does. It does. You wonder why it's there. Why that stigma? Why we give it so much power? And what I've been feeling with this campaign is just letting go and caring less about the judgment that comes with it, because everybody's got something, and I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to be a caring, loving person. It's just these walls we've built up don't allow us to do that. So we wonder what that stigma is there, and who is it serving, to have that. So.
Again, we talked to lots of people who've had loss, and some really struggle, on a bunch of levels. And I've got a colleague who often talks about people re-injuring. You got an injury and you kind of re-injure because they can't quite get past the I guess the grief and I guess the circumstances. Just wondering, you might have some advice for people caught in a moment or caught in the moment.
Yeah, and that's something I haven't considered enough with that, but it makes total sense. And I think your support network is so important to establish that. And I think that was one of our main concerns as a family when we came together and we had our grief circle, was how are we going to support each other, or support each other and support ourselves. And that was, because we were in a situation where my sisters live far away, we can't see them, and that's someone that I worry about and making sure that we can be there for each other as much as possible. And I know my sisters were very on it with counseling, more so than I was at the time, with their insight in looking long term for what this could be like, and that re-injuring process that you speak of. Where myself, I wasn't ready to go back to work right away. It happened in the summer, and I found for me myself, I wasn't there. So I think taking time for yourself at the beginning, and if you haven't already done that, perhaps you didn't have the luxury to take time off, right? And fortunately, I was supported that way, and I had a very understanding employer and principal as well, who advocated for me to do that because I felt that it was right. But if you don't have that luxury, I think I think counseling, grief counseling, is so effective. The woman that I saw, Eva DeCasmio, fantastic woman. She helped me with it so much, and I found that just pivotal in turning a corner. I wasn't ready to go immediately, but I think if people aren't doing that finding a counselor that they're comfortable with and sharing that with is so massive for doing that. And as well, just taking care of yourself, because as I've been told, when you burn out and you fall to pieces, you're no good to anyone else, right? So I think having that self-care with nutrition, counseling, and that circle of friends, and being around people who make you smile, really simply at the end of the day. Watching comedies, watching uplifting. There's times I'd be listening to certain music, I'm just like, blah, I can't listen to this. This is too negative. Or watching TV, staying away from certain things. I found myself getting frustrated. So there's positivity all the time, and loving yourself.
Yeah.
I think is.
Can you say a little bit about finding the counsellor and then the process in terms of your interactions with the counsellor? Like what was she? It was a she.
Yeah.
What was she doing that kind of worked?
I found just really poignant and insightful journal topics that I would leave with, like homework, like what are you mad at yourself for? Addressing that. What's your commitment to your relative? And I found asking myself those questions so powerful. Like, what's my commitment to my big brother? Yeah. Is my commitment to just roll over and do a so-so job of life and be mediocre at that? No. What would they want? And it's a question that, it's one thing to ask that and get through the moment, but you need to have a sustainable change in your life that you're going to, so I would tape it up in my house. I still do. I still put my goals up that I want to accomplish, so they're visible. And like with the fellow the first backer to our Kickstarter, I have his loonie that he gave beside a picture of my brother in my bedroom that I see, and that's the first thing I see when I wake up. And so having those topics that she gave me was so great. And on a side note, Dr. Eben Alexander's book, Proof of Heaven. I don't know if you've read that. That book helped me a lot, as well as about a brain surgeon who had a near-death experience from bacterial meningitis, where he was in a coma and his neocortex was completely shut down, and he describes his experience. If for nothing more, it's a great read. And then I found that hopeful. So the journal topics for sure, and about what my commitment was, and about what I was mad at myself for, because there was certainly a bit of selfishness in my grief as well, that I didn't get to say this, and a bit of resentment at times that I needed to work through.
Yeah. And a lot of people talk to me about that it's a long-term project, so help might not be just for the first couple of months. So I'm not sure if that's your experience.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. Is having that plan, and that's something that we again talked about it as a family. Is at the time, you have tons of people around, and I think and there's a lot of busyness and a lot of distractions, and then it's almost similar, I think, to a birth as well. And then there's a big hustle and bustle, and then now you're there to look after whatever it is that's there. And so at the time of a passing, there's a tremendous busyness, and then all of a sudden your phone's not ringing anymore, and things aren't as busy and active, and you're left with yourself.
Yeah.
And that can be a scary thing at times. So looking at that long-term solution were definitely questions we were talking about as a family. What are you going to do? First of all, what are you going to do today for yourself? But what are you going to do 6 months from now? What's that going to look like? And those projections. I think that was where we established, the routine with grief counseling, with work, and again, like keeping it real with your support network. Yeah.
Money. So we sometimes kid ourselves that we're going to raise some money.
All right.
We're not very good at it. So you are.
Well, it's a start. It's a start.
Just the process, even the process in terms of because Kickstarter, that it's been very interesting.
Yeah.
It was the first kind of exposure I'd had to that.
Okay.
So I thought it was very, very interesting the way that they do business. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was terrific. And but then there's you still got to ask, don't you? You still got to put it out.
Oh, yeah.
So just can you take us through the process, because that seems to me to take an enormous amount of courage and strength to do that.
Yeah, I think what made it easier doing that was, as you know, with Kickstarter, there's a reward system, right? So what was great was having some solid rewards to offer. And that's a question that's the first question, right? What are your incentives going to be for being a part of this project? Is it just to have that heartwarming feeling of donating to a charity? In this case, people are asking, like, is this going directly to charity? And it's like, no, it's not. This is a long-term project to raise more money for charity, where proceeds from the album are going to go back to BGH. But at the same time, you need to keep the campaign afloat, and we need to have that product to sell. So that was, you need to have your frequently asked questions tight, and your overall summary of what your campaign is. And that was, to say, this is a hip hop album about mental health awareness, brotherly love. And Scott Ramsey did an excellent job of writing this. He's an English teacher at Kits with lyrics that beats that crack the bone, and lyrics that examine the marrow of this tragedy. And that was a line by Scott. So that helped. His writing was so great to have on the Kickstarter. And then you want to have your, like I said, your rewards. So if you donate in increments of $10, you get a download of the album. 20, you get a hard copy and admission to the release party. $50 gets you, and we almost didn't I think we did undervalue this a bit. Aaron Salazar pencil drawing of the album art, and it's a print. So I think that pulled in a lot of people. He's an established artist. Not only that, he's a great person, but we haven't put the album art out there, and you yourself are going to get one of these prints autographed by him, and it's brilliant. So that helps. And I think what you guys are doing up here, already being teamed up with artists and photographers, there's leverage in that as well. And I found using the arts did pull in people. I was given a quote that when you're investing in art, you're investing in culture. And I think that artists have created massive social shift in our world. And I think music is also going to bring that to mental health as well. I think it's going to be a part of that with theater, with photography, etc. So that was, once we had our rewards in place, then you start asking your network. When you're confident at that, it's almost like setting up a business plan, or it is. And then you can choose. The scary part is you can choose the 30-day or the 60-day. And they ask you to go for the 30-day. They say they're more successful because there's more of a sense of urgency with that. So we went for the 60. I needed some time. So that was it. And you basically just take it from there.
And what day was it that
It was February 15th.
And
it closed.
It closed. Okay. And when did your 10,000 tick over?
It was 8 days prior to that, so that would have been like February 7th. That's 7th or 8th, and I'm not sure. And I got an email, and man, that was a great feeling. That you're officially kickstarted.
Yeah.
And so that was nice. But keep in mind that there is a 5% deduction from Kickstarter, right? They get their pay as well. So when you hit 10,000, you don't necessarily get 10,000. Yeah. It ended up being, we went over, we got 11,000, and we ended up with $9,956. So it was a little over $1,000 in deductions. So yeah, so that was, if you have any questions about that, that was, like, I think the reward system, and then, as well, some people didn't want the reward. They just wanted to donate, no reward. And, that was very selfless.
Yeah, that's interesting. Even some of the mainstream kind of people who had record contracts, because record contracts kind of disappeared.
Yeah, yeah, it's
And
a different industry now.
I'm seeing a bit of a trend with this as well.
Yeah, yeah. TLC is just doing a big Kickstarter campaign right now, because I think they went bankrupt in in the early 2000s or close to that. So they're launching a big Kickstarter campaign. And there's some silly ones, like a guy wanted to make potato salad, I think, and got like $2,000 and things. So they're, but musicians are definitely getting hip to that. I think that Kickstarter, you know, some of my favorite underground hip hop acts, like the Grouch and Eli, set one for $80,000 last year, and they hit that. Latyrix did one as well recently. I'm not sure. I'm assuming that they got it because they're quite established and their album was great. But yeah, it is coming up. And it's in genres outside of music. So yeah.
And just when the press comes knocking, which surely they will, with this album and with all the meaning around it,
Mm-hmm.
I guess it'd be interesting to see what the story is
Mm-hmm.
for them and how you deal with that in terms of, I guess the story is going to be about the content, or how it worked is.
Yeah, yeah, because that's going to be some natural questioning, and I think they will. I think they will have that dialogue, and you know, I'm comfortable having that dialogue, and I think I've been, you know, I'm waiting for a moment where I'm not comfortable with what's going on, but so far I haven't had to worry about that. Like, I think you know, everything that I've said on the album, I can stand behind and I can speak to it. So we shall see. So far, so good. Just did a podcast with the province yesterday with Stuart Duden, which should be out tomorrow. And you know, I've just had a great experiences so far, but not to be naive that there's potential for something else. But I think we're in a good place in Vancouver and in our society, where I'm visibly, I think, seeing the shift that's going on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me today. I hope some of what I said was useful to the people watching. If you'd like to come out and see me do my thing live, I will be at Joe's apartment this Saturday, March 14th. Doors open at 9, and I'll be with ST Elements, SOS, DJ CeeLo, and Hiroka performing there. So feel free to check me out. And if you want to learn more about the campaign, it's you can Google Trevor Mills, Evidence of the Struggle. So thank you very much, John, and all of you for making this happen today.
And so, yeah, and just to say thank you for the people who tuned in and who catch it in its archives after this event. And just genuine thanks, Trevor, for contacting me way back in the day when I was in the middle of a game that you really just took my breath away. And all the very best with the ongoing work. And looking forward to keeping in touch. And I know that we're buying to get exclusive rights with you. You know, we know there's other universities chasing you, and we will do our best to get some exclusive rights.
All right, I look forward to it. All right, thanks again.